Good afternoon, Susan, and thank you again for being here today. I'm looking forward to learning more about your career and hearing about your perspective on marketing and leadership. So, to begin with, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Okay. I have a little bit of a different background for a marketing person, although I've met several other people with very similar backgrounds over the years. So I started out as a chemical engineer, and I studied chemical engineering and math and computer science, and I worked for about 6 years in oil refineries all over the world. So I was a startup engineer and a design engineer for plants to raise the octane in gasoline back in the day. This is back in the 80s when gasoline lead was coming out of it. Believe it or not, we used to have lead in it, and lead's poisonous. So I did that for a number of years. But as soon as I started working as an engineer, I went to school at night for my MBA. And while I was getting my MBA, I really started to enjoy the business side of things. And I asked if I could start getting involved in sales support. So when we would sell a plant to somebody in Europe, the salespeople needed a technical person to go along with them who could explain what the process would do and how everything would work. So I suggested that I would be a good person for that. I started doing it, and then I started doing marketing support. So it was kind of on a volunteer basis, but I found that I really liked it, and the company was paying for my MBA, and I thought it was a good idea to try to do that. Fast forward, I get the degree and I decide I really like the business side. But I didn't choose marketing at that point. I ended up going into management consulting. I was hired by a small consulting firm who was looking for people with technical backgrounds and MBAs. My MBA, by the way, is in finance and international business. It's not in marketing. And so I joined a consulting firm and worked on everything from organizational behavior projects to how to streamline operations in a jet engine plant. We worked for chemical companies, all types of companies. Found that I really liked it. And then the company got very, very focused in aerospace. Did a lot of aerospace projects. I enjoyed it, but I did not want a career in aerospace. And they were moving out to Salt Lake City. And I didn't have an interest in going out that way. So I had to think about what I wanted to do, and I decided marketing and business development was my biggest interest. So I joined a consumer product company as a business development manager, brought some new products to the marketplace, did some marketing with them, and then I was enticed to go to a chemical company to manage a marketing department. So I went back into my chemical roots, but this time on the business side, managed a marketing department and a telesales department and service and support, and found that that was my passion. And then from that point on, I spent my career in marketing management. So over those years, I worked mostly in B2B, and then I eventually pivoted to professional services, where I worked for an accounting firm doing marketing for them. And I worked for, my final stop was with a consulting firm where I was the chief marketing officer for the consulting firm. So I'm retired now, and it's lovely. But I'm retired now for 2 years. But for about 11 years, I was an adjunct professor at the university where I went, Manhattan University, in sales and marketing classes. After COVID, I didn't love it, so I stopped. And then once I retired, I got the call, will I come back and teach some MBA classes? So I currently am an adjunct, teaching a few MBA classes at the business school at Manhattan University. So I've had several lives, pivoted in different places, and never could have predicted that this is where I would end up. But it was a very interesting and fulfilling career. And as it turns out, they're not letting go of me, so I'm still teaching.
Well, it sounds like you're enjoying that, and it sounds like your career has really brought you full circle.
Yes.
And coming from your beginning roots into engineering and the influence from your background, How did that help you with your approach to how you look at marketing and business strategy now?
Yeah. The engineering, I took it because I was good in math and science, didn't really know too much better. But the engineering roots have helped me with everything that I've done because what it has taught me is how to pick apart something, analyze it, figure out how something works. And that something that works doesn't have to be something in an operating plant or something mechanical or chemical. That how it works could be how we're bringing a product to market. So a lot of the project management, a lot of the logic, a lot of the business development and market plan development ended up dovetailing very nicely into the engineering. And one of the great things about it is you go in and you say to somebody, hey, I'm a chemical engineer, and you get some instant creds, which doesn't hurt. But it really has helped me to move from chemical industry to paper products to consumer products to graphic products back to chemical into consulting. It allows me to pick up on industries very quickly.
Wow. And from this experience, working with all of these different organizations, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that organizations tend to make when they are developing their marketing strategies?
Quite often, people tend to bring in marketing managers and marketing leaders who have been in that industry forever. And so I don't feel that that is the best way to go. You need to have an awareness and you need to understand clearly the industry that you're marketing with. But what I found is that over the years, bringing in people from other industries, bringing me into a place that I had never worked in, for example, professional services, I applied a lot of the things I knew from consumer goods. I applied a lot of things I knew from the chemical side. And the people within the business were like, well, you don't know our business. And I made sure I studied it and learned it. And they quickly, were fans and didn't fight me on anything like that. So I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make often is that you have to hire people that come from the same background as you, right? And that's not necessarily true. Quite often, the diversity of thinking and background really adds to a marketing department. And I often did that with my hiring.
That's a great perspective.
Thank you.
I'm going to pivot on this next question, and this is going to draw a little bit from my sector. How can marketing professionals demonstrate measurable value and ROI in their organizations where success is not always measurable or directly tied to sales? These organizations are, for example, government, nonprofit, and public sector organizations.
I would argue that that's for every type of organization, not just the ones that you mentioned, because at the end of the day, first of all, there is no marketing without selling something, right? The selling of it might be you're selling somebody to give you money for a grant, right? I'm selling somebody, I work for a blood bank and I'm selling somebody to give me their blood, right? You're always selling something. I'm selling for you to donate to my charity. But in that selling, the marketing people don't often do the selling. So even if you're in a traditional organization where you have a sales organization, you have a marketing organization, and you really do want to end up with the sale of an item, the marketing team can never fully be held accountable for a sale. So when you look at KPIs, you look at key performance indicators, and you look at a dashboard that you might measure a marketing department on, and I had this at the consulting firm where I was, you rarely have in there sales. What you often will have in there instead are, how many eyeballs have been on the website, how many people are interacting with our campaigns. When we host an event, have the relationships gone to a deeper level, and you start looking in tools that you have where you're tracking sales funnels and sales pipelines. It's all of those things that should be measured for a marketing group, regardless of whether it is public sector or private sector. Because ultimately, as a marketing person, I can't make the sale. I can bring the sale to the sales team. And the friction you see in the world when you have a traditional sales team and a traditional marketing team is that sales says marketing didn't price it right. and marketing didn't give me the promotions that I needed, or didn't give me all the tools I needed, and they tied their, my hands behind the back. And then what marketing says is those dumb salespeople don't know how to sell. If they knew how to close, they would go ahead and close. Now, I want to just bring up one point with that. I encourage every marketing person at some point to quote unquote carry a bag, sell something. So to have sales experience gives you a credibility as you rise in a marketing organization. People want to know that you know how to sell. So at a point in my career, I did sell and I enjoyed it. I was good at it. I didn't like it as much as the marketing. But it's really, really important to basically check that off in your career. And then you have a leg to stand on as you're talking to sales about what you need them to do. And you also understand how they're motivated and how they're driven. But specifically for like a sector, like a public sector, what are the key measurements that the business growth is dependent on, right? And the business growth might be constituents, right? The business growth might be, again, a positive measurement of sentiment, whatever it might be. But ultimately, as a marketing person, communications person, you have to look at what are the things along the way that could affect that can be in my control, so that when I hand it to the next department, right, the fundraising department, I hand it over to the political the senators or congressmen. I hand it over to to other people that they can do their part. So does that answer your question?
It does. And it's such a great perspective to have. And I really love your points on having that sales foundation. I think that is a unique skill to have, and it is good to start with the knowledge of understanding how sales work so you can understand the full process, as you said, going from sales into marketing.
Mm-hmm. It's really important, very important to do. And I was kind of dragged into it in one of my positions, a long time ago in my career, and it ended up being a lot of fun. And then the interesting thing is when I started teaching, I was asked if I could do a sales management class, and I said no. I didn't really love it. I loved my sales management class more than my marketing and advertising class that I taught. And I have encouraged every student that I've ever taught to really consider it. And many, many of them have gone into sales. Some of them have stayed in sales. Others have taken a step in it and then have moved on. So it really is an important thing to have some experience with.
And you may have kind of answered this final question that I have for you, but what is the most important lesson that you try to pass on to your own business and marketing students?
Try to make sure that and I learned this not right at the beginning. I ended up going through some training and development classes for me when I worked for a big company. Relationship building. You cannot get anything done by yourself. You could be the most efficient person that there ever was. You can find that you really enjoy doing your work and getting it all done, and skip all the niceties and all the relationship piece. But at the end of the day, the more that you could build the relationships, the stronger you'll be. And this is very helpful in the early years. But even in my final step, when I was in the C-suite, it would have been impossible to get anything done if I didn't have the relationship and mutual respect for the other groups. It sounds like a soft thing, but you will never get far without really taking the time to get to know people and to get to understand what makes them successful and how you can all be successful. So it's some of the softer side cannot be overlooked.
I think that's a very valuable point, and that's a great way to close this. And Susan, thank you again for your time and for sharing these great insights. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, and I truly appreciate this opportunity to learn from your experiences, and I hope that others that listen to this interview find this just as insightful as I have. And thank you again.
Great. And thank you. I enjoyed it and I appreciate you taking the time with me. So thank you very much.